Well, welcome back to the arcade. All right, today we're going to do part 2 of the BALLY Midway card rack board tester cards. And in part 1, we set it up to where we could test the RAM cards, which is how it's set up right here. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and set this up for the pattern boards, because these test cards only test the RAM cards and the pattern boards. All right, so first we're going to take this RAM card out, and we're going to need this for the test because we're going to have 2 RAM cards in the card cage this time. So we're going to put this one in the cage. We tested it and we know it's good. So I'm just going to put this right over here on the side here. Okay, so we're going to go by the instructions for the pattern board test. And number 1 says remove RAM test card. Okay, well, the RAM test card is this card right here that's in J6. So we're going to remove this card. And this card is not used in the pattern board test, so we're just going to set it to the side. Okay. Alright, remove the card rack board tester card from J4 and insert it into J6. Okay, here is the card rack board tester card, or I call the main test card. And it's in J4, so we're going to pull this out. And it wants us to put it where we had the RAM test card in J6, which is the card slot that's in the front of the cage here. But before we do that, we have to remove the ROMs for the RAM test and install the ROMs for the pattern board test. So let me go ahead and remove these. And again, these are marked X4 and X5. And these are original to the board. Well, let's just say they were in the board when I got it. So I haven't checked them to see if they're good, but I'm just going on the assumption that they're good. All right, there's X4. X5 goes here. Okay. We don't have to worry about the dip switches because they're set up the same, but I don't even think you use the dip switches in this setup. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put it in J6. Okay. All right. Number 4, insert 2 pattern test proms at location X4 and X5. All right, we just did that. Step 5, connect the video cable to the connector at J2 of the card rack board tester pins 11 and 12. Well, we never disconnected it, so it's already hooked up. Step 6, insert the bad pattern card into the 50-pin connector on the card rack board tester. Press the red button to clear system. Okay, well, that's weird. It doesn't say on here to add the second RAM card, but I know you got to have it in here, so that's weird. I thought I read somewhere where it said it had to be in here. Alright, we're going to put that in here anyway. Oh yeah. Why they didn't put it up here? These instructions, I don't know who wrote these things, but they're a little funky, because they should have told you to put they call them proms, but they're really ROMs. The test pattern proms in location X4 and X5. They should have told you to put them in before they told you to put the card in the rack, but they got it backwards again. And they should have told you to put the extra RAM card in there, but down here at the bottom, the last line, it says for proper pattern test, 2 RAM cards must be used. So I knew I seen that somewhere in the instructions, but why it's not up here, I don't know. Somebody, I don't know, they needed to rewrite these instructions. So anyway, don't matter. We got them anyway. Okay, so now we have everything in here. We have a RAM card in J1, a RAM card in J2. We have the CPU board in J3. And J6, we have the cardboard tester. And this has the, what do they call it, the 50-pin connector? Well, actually it's a 100-pin, because you got 50 pins on each side of the card there. So, okay. Well, anyway, we're ready to test. Tell you what I'm going to do first. I'm going to take the working pattern board out of my Gorf game, and we'll do that first, and we'll see if the working board tests good. That way we'll know, hey, at least it's testing a good board. So let me get the board out the game, and I'll be right back, and we'll get to testing. Okay. Well, here's my good pattern board I just took out of my Gorf game. I already tested it a little while ago, and the game is working 100%. So, let's see. This should go, let's see. That's pin 1, that's 99, this is 100, and this pin 2. So it's pin 1 here, 99 here. So it's got to go this way. Okay. Just don't want to get that backwards, because this one doesn't have any key on it, I don't believe. The board has a key, but the edge connector doesn't have a key, so you could accidentally put it in the wrong way. Okay, well, let me get this out here. Okay. Alright. We'll put the card number 6, insert the bad pattern card into the 50-pin connector of the card rack board tester. Press the red reset button to clear system. A bad pattern card will display area of trouble on video screen. A good pattern card will display the words looks good. And number 10, connectors J1 and J5 are not used at this time. And 11, the dip switch is for future use. Note, when chip U2, which is a 74S138, is removed, the card rack board tester card can be used as an extender card for powering up the CPU, pattern, and game cards. So in other words, if you remove U2 on the board, you can use that card just like it is right here, set up in the game, so that you can use it to troubleshoot the board, so you don't have to do it in the cage. which that's pretty nice. Okay, the black slide switch should be in position 1 when X4 and X5 ROMs are in proper location. And for proper pattern test, 2 RAM cards must be used. Okay. Let me make sure the switch is in position 1. It is. So we're ready to test. All right. Let's power it up and see what happens. Okay, we just got a blank screen, but we'll probably have to hit the reset. And nothing. Try it again. Nothing. Nothing. Well, that ain't good. All right, let me reseat these boards. Make sure I got this in the right position. All right, let's try it again. Well, we're getting a crazy pattern there. Okay, I'm gonna have to regroup. Okay, I'm back. And around here, we don't sugarcoat it. If I mess up, I mess up. Got looking over my work, and I found out that X4, when I put it in, had one leg that didn't go in, and it missed the socket. It bent outward somehow, and I didn't catch it. So all I had to do was straighten the leg back up and put it back in. So we're going to try it again. So let's see what happens. Let's power it up. We got some activity this time. All right. It says, looks good. It's a little hard to see. But it says, looks good. I definitely need to get that color mod going. It doesn't look like it has a lot of interference, but it does look like it's still got some interference. If I could adjust that screen a little bit, but I don't have my remote control, so not much I can do about it. Okay, well, that's the good pattern card, so that one is good. And I was hoping it would be because I just took it out of the working game. So, all right. Well, let's go ahead and try another one. Now, I got 3 more that came in my spare board sets. All 3 of them had problems. One of them doesn't work at all. When you put it in the game, I think it's a blank screen. The game doesn't even come up. One of them, the game comes up and runs in the background, but it's got like a red looking rug pattern that's over top of the characters and the sprites on the screen. In between the lines, you can see that the game is running behind it, but it's just got this rug pattern like covering up the game screen. Okay, and then the other one almost works. Some screens look normal, but some screens have multiples. It's almost like it's got a sync problem, but it's like it'll duplicate certain parts of the characters or sprites on the screen. It'll be like it'll have 4 of the same one swipe. So anyway, this one here is number 10, which was in the first board set. And let me see which one this is. I have my notes. Number 10, this is the one that has the blank screen. So this one is the worst one of all of them. So let's go ahead and power it up and see what it says. If it even says anything. It may be so dead that it won't do anything. Okay, it's doing nothing, so let me hit the reset button. And it looks like this one is just totally dead. It won't even test. Yeah, so this board has got some serious problems. Maybe this was in the card set that had the RAM card where all but one RAM was wiped out. And if that's the case, maybe it's got multiple chips that are wiped out on it. So that might be one I'm going to have to go through and take chip by chip out and try to figure out, you know, which chips are bad and which ones are good. Okay, here's number 11. All right, this one here, this is the one that the game runs, but it has the rug pattern. Okay, well, let's see what happens. Well, it's doing something. And I got a feeling it's going to have a rug pattern over top of the words, so you're not going to be able to read what it says, because I can't see a thing. All right, let me hit the reset. Okay, here we go. Fatal error. Check data latches. Flush status bit 08. Direction status bit 01. Area and linear height 2 bits, trans state buffers, and control logic. All right. So here's the sheet with the errors on it. So first it says check data latches. Well, it has data bus. Okay, data latches, fatal errors. Location U19 and U10. It's a 74LS175. So I need to check those two. What I could do is just pull those out and check them in my tester and see if they're good. If you know, let's see, data latches. All right, flush status bit 08. Okay, that one is location U21 pin 10. That's a 74174. Direction status bit 01, U21 pin 2, that's also a 74174. Area and linear high 2 bits, that's U7 pin 3 and 13 and U8 pin 10 and 13. Tri-state buffers, that's U20 and U11, that's a 74 LS367. And control logic clock, U5, 74 LS161, U6, 74 LS04, and U12, a 74 LS00. Well, that doesn't seem to be much help because that's everything that's on this list right here. I wonder if that's all it does. Let me push the reset again and see if it just comes up with the same thing. Yep, that's all it comes up with. Okay, well, okay. Let's check the next card. Okay. Okay, well, this is giving me something different on this one. Now, 12, this one right here, board number 12, is it's bad, but the one that almost works. Okay, so we might have a chance at this. Okay. The data bus says it's okay. Okay linear. Okay. Whatever that is. Area LD. OK X wide. OK feed BK. 10 status, it says bad. 10 status. Line, linear CT OK. Area CT OK. Adder OK. Status, flip flop, flush. Okay, that's a little bit different. Flop okay, flip bad, flash okay, whatever that is, CONS okay, EXP okay, and DR okay. So I got, is that up top there to the right? Is that 10 status bad or is that IO status bad? Okay. Here's the locations for those. It's data bus, Okay, that was okay. Everything is okay till I get to the, is that 10 or IO status? It just says status here. So that says U21. So that's, if that's bad, if I replace U21, I might have a winner there. Alright, and flip is bad. Flip. That's pin 12 on U21. So again, U21. So I think if I replace U21 on this board, I'll be able to fix it. Okay, U21. What is U21? U21 is over here in 74, 174. All right, U21. U21 is right here. And it says it's a MC141748. Huh. I'm going to have to look into that. And maybe that's an equivalent chip, or maybe that's a Motorola. It's a Motorola chip. Maybe that's just a Motorola number. All right. I'll look into that and be back. Okay, well, something interesting just happened. I decided to put this card in again, and I tested it, and now it tests good. So I pulled it back out. I took my fiberglass scratch pen. I cleaned the gold terminals on the bottom of the card. So let's turn it on again, and let's see what happens. Okay, so this looks good. So maybe this board is good. Alright, there's only one way to find out. Let's put it in the golf game and find out. Okay, just put that pattern card in the game. Let's turn it on. And go around here and see what it looks like. No, it's still messed up. Okay, that part looks okay. See, it's almost working, but it's got some artifacts in it. I think you notice it more on the title screen than anywhere. Okay, yeah, whoa. There we go. So it's definitely bad. Yeah. That's just goofy. Okay, well, let's see if we can test it one more time and see if it still comes up good or if it comes up bad again. Okay, well, let's try it again. Okay. Now we're getting that same thing. The foot bad and the status bad. And that's U21, so yeah, we're going to have to change U21. Okay, let me do a little research and find out if a 74 LS chip will replace that, and if I have one. If not, I'm going to have to place an order, so let me see what I can do. All right, well, it's the next day, and we're back working on this pattern board out of my Gorf, one of the spare boards. This is the one that, according to the test, we suspect that U21 is bad. And I did do some checking to see if that MC14174B, that's what's on the chip that's in it, it's the same as, well, they have it listed right here as a 74174, but also if you go down here, it says U21 is a 74 LS174, and that's the status latch chip. So got looking, and I just happen to have some 74 LS174s. Even though this video wasn't going to be a repair video, since this board seems like it might be a simple fix according to the card tester, I'm going to go ahead and change that chip, and we're going to test it and find out and see if the card tester knows what it's testing. So, all right, so here's the board right here, and we got to take out, desolder U21. So here's U21 right here. Let's see, make sure I don't want to take the wrong chip out. Keep my finger on it until I get the camera situated here. All right, keep my eye on it. Get some solder out. And let's see if we can desolder this puppy here. All right, well, it's been a couple of days, but I went ahead and pulled this U21 chip out, which the tester was telling us that that may be the problem, but I'm not totally convinced of it, and I'll tell you why. Went ahead and pulled the chip out and put a socket in and replaced it with a new chip. And the old chip that I took out, I put it in my tester here, and if I test it, it comes out to a 74 HC174 or a 4174. Okay, so the chip tests good. So that's one indication that I don't think that chip is the problem, but I went ahead and replaced it with a 74 LS174, which according to the instructions, they do mention that that is a chip that will replace it. So that's what I did. So let's go ahead and fire it up. I've put it back in a tester, and let's see what it tells us. Okay, it says the same thing. Status is bad and the flip is bad. And according to the error notes in the manual, that points us towards U21 being bad, but we've replaced it, so that's not so. Okay, well, I've been playing around with this a little bit more too, and it seems like this tester board is a little flaky. Now, let me go ahead and try a few things. All I got to do is hit the reset button. I'm going to hold some pressure down on it and hit the reset. Now look what it says. Looks good. So that means the board is good according to the test board. All right, let me let the pressure off of it. I hit it again. Now it's saying it looks good. Okay, so according to the test card, the pattern board is good, but we just tested it and it said it was bad. So which is it? All right, well, let me take this board out and I'll show you something else. This is my good pattern board, the one that I was running in the golf game. This is tested in the game and it is 100% working board. So let me put this in the tester. Okay, let's turn it on. And look at there. It says fatal error. And it gives you a whole list. And that's basically just a generic list that's in the manual. It's nothing specific. So it's basically telling you you got a problem with the board and you just have to run through this checklist and find out where the trouble is. Well, this is a good board. I know it's good. It's been tested good. All right, well, let me hold down pressure on it and hit the reset and see what happens. Still bad. All right. Let me reseat the board again. Trying to put some pressure on the board here. All right, no matter what I try to do, it says this board is bad. But like I say, this is supposed to be a good board. So let me put this one back in. And if you remember, this board right here is the one that almost worked, but it had some graphic issues. All right, now it's coming up with the bad screen again. All right, let me put pressure on it, hit the reset. Nope. Okay, now it says looks good. All right. Try the good board again. Okay, It's still coming up bad every time I try to test it. All right, well, the ultimate test is, let's put these boards in the game and find out which one works and which one doesn't work. Okay, well, I'm going to put my good pattern board back in the game. Let's turn it on and find out if it's still good. Cross the fingers, because I hope my good pattern board isn't bad. Okay, so far so good. Just let it go through the track mode here, and we should know here in a second. So far so good. That's looking good. All right. Well, it looks like this pattern board is good after all. So the tester is wrong. It's telling me, once in a while it'll tell me this is good. But right now, more than one time, over and over again, it's telling me it was bad. So, right now that tester can't be trusted because something ain't right with it. Okay, well, let's go ahead and put this board in, the one that I changed, the U21, and sometimes it checks as good, sometimes it checks as bad. So let's find out if replacing that chip had any effect. So let me go ahead and swap it out. Okay, well, I done put the board that was almost working, the one that I replaced the U21 chip in. So let's turn it on and see what happens. Okay, right off the bat, I can tell it's jacked up. But let's compare it to the way it was early in the video. Before I changed the chip, we put this in so we can kind of do a comparison to see if it's doing the same thing or if it's worse or better. So far it's about the same. Yeah. Looking pretty much the same so far. Okay. It looks pretty much the same. Maybe not quite as bad, but no. It's pretty much the same. I'm sure that just every time it'll give you something a little different, but yeah. So this board is bad, even though it was showing sometimes it's good. So we got problems with that test card. Okay, so what do you think might be the problem? Well, since this board, the test board, works in combination with the RAM card, we had no problems. I don't think there's anything wrong with the board itself. And since sometimes it works, I think it's an intermittent problem. So what would that be? I'm thinking the edge connector, because this edge connector is not used when you're using the RAM board. Okay, the RAM cards plug into the smaller edge connector that's on the RAM board. All right, the pattern board plugs into this 100 pin or dual 50 pin, however you want to call it. edge connector. So either we still have a problem with the edge connector, even though I put some deoxit in there, or maybe some of these pins are messed up. So I'm going to get the micro lens back on the other camera, and let's take a look. First we'll look at the pins and see what they look like. Try to anyway. And there's one other thing, cold solder joints. Maybe this edge connector has cold solder joints. So we're going to check both of those things out to see if we can't narrow down the problem, because there is a problem on this card. And right now that's the only thing I can think of that might be the problem. So we'll go ahead, cut this off. We don't need that monitor on. I'll take the card out of the card cage. In fact, we can just get this out of the way. All right, well, let me go get set up, and we'll be back and we'll see if we can't get a look at this. All right, let me see if I can keep this steady enough, and let's take a look at these pins. They don't look the cleanest, do they? And look at that one right there. That one looks pretty jacked up on the top side center there. That's definitely not good. All right, that's another. Both the top and bottom there look kind of jacked up. They don't look that great either. I wish I had a little more light so it would shine down in there, but trying to get the camera up close, it's hard to do. Trying to be as steady as I can. Alright. The rest of them don't look too bad. That last one right there is a little cattywampus, but not too bad. That one right there is probably the worst. It's jacked up on both sides. And that one there is definitely jacked up on the top of that one right there in the center. But nothing that really, that one there might be a problem. And maybe the other one is too, but for all in all, unless the terminals are dirty, I mean, these are supposed to be gold plated, I believe. So I still could get me some Tarnex and try to clean them with some Tarnex, because they do look like maybe it's hard to tell. Whether that's just the difference in the light. That one there looks like it could be corroded. Don't know if I can get any closer or not. Yeah, they don't really look corroded. And it could be dirty though. Or it could just be a shadow. That one there looks kind of nasty though. It don't look good. That's the one that both of them kind of looks messed up. Okay, well, I think we can safely say that if this was mine, I would want to source another connector and put a new connector on it. I don't know whether these are, how readily available they are, if you can still even get them. I did look up this part number on here and I couldn't find a match for it. And it's got a manufacturer name, TEKA, which they're still in business and they still make connectors, but they don't, that number doesn't come up in a search. But the number on this is a TP5 501 S04. So I don't know whether we'll be able to come up with one of them or not. All right, let's take a look at the solder connections on the back and see what they look like. And see if we can see if any of these look like they're bad solder joints. Again, it's kind of hard to get it focused. They look a little, some of them look a little corroded around the edges, but yeah, it's possible. That one's kind of corroded. Go down this bottom row first. Look like somebody just tried to solder that one at one time. I haven't touched any of these. That one right there has definitely been touched up. You can see the rosin around it. And like I say, I haven't touched these, so that's not me. So that means somebody else was having problems with this. And they tried to touch that one up. Alright, these are kind of got a little corrosion on them. Alright, let's go up to top row now. Some of them look a little suspect, but I don't see nothing really sticking out at me. Not really the best looking solder jobs, but somebody might have touched these up a long time ago, but if they did, they cleaned the flux off of them, except for that one. Yeah, I don't see any that really stands out. But if you look at this board here, There's a lot of connections on the bottom of the board here, but there's a lot of connections like over here. There's no connections on the bottom and a few spaced in between. So that means it's you know, no connection here, but it's connection on the top side of the board. So therefore, you have solder joints underneath the edge right here. The pins make connection on the top side of the board right underneath the connector, so you can have bad solder joints in there. Now I don't know whether we can get in there and see those or not. That might be kind of difficult to see. But let's see if there's a way that we can get in here. All right, look at that one right there in the middle. See the green housing? It's melted and discolored right there. Somebody has been in there with a soldering iron to try to make a connection there. Can't quite. Let me try this again. Let me raise this up. Let's see if I can get a little more height on it here. Let me see if I can get under here better. Okay, that's a little better. Now see that? That's the pin where it comes down from the top. And it definitely looks like cold solder joints. Look at that one right there. That's definitely a cold solder joint, and it's making a connection on the top side of the board right there. There's another one. There's another one. That one looks like it too. Look at that one right there. If I can get it steady. See the crack in it? Across it? Alright, now I'm getting into the shadow here where I can't really see up under there. Hard to get it on the camera where you can see it. Alright, let me see if I can get back down this way. Yeah, they definitely look crappy right there. I think we found a problem. It's hard to show it, but I can look at it with my magnifying visor here and get a better view on it. And they definitely look like it's a whole bunch of, yeah, cold solder joints. So, all right. Normally, since this isn't my board, it belongs to Dave, I don't like messing with other people's boards without their permission. But I did email him. There's a scratch on the board here. I'm looking to make sure it. Yeah, it's just a scratch. The trace looks intact. I did tell him what I suspected, and he said to go ahead and do whatever I thought needed to be done. So, since I don't have one of these connectors, the best thing I can do right now is to go ahead and remove this old solder and flow new solder in there and hope that that connector is going to be good enough. I might be able to go in there with a pick or something and try to straighten those connectors up a little bit, but I generally don't like messing with that type of thing because it, you know, it's too easy to mess them up. So if the reflow doesn't work, then I might try to source another edge connector here. We'll see if it's even possible to get them. I know somebody must have them because Vector Labs, I believe it was Vector Labs, recreated the back plane that goes in the bottom of the card cage, and they are the same connectors, although they're a different brand. I guess I could see if I could get a number off of those and maybe see if I could get that type. But this type right here is probably since this is made for a test rig, this is probably a little bit beefier, I would think, to hold up to more insertions than what would be in the card cage, because you're normally not taking them in and out of the card cage as much as a tech would be working on the board. So that's just a theory. I mean, I might be totally wrong there. Okay, well, next step is I'm going to go ahead and reflow the solder, and I'm not going to video that. I mean, there's hundreds of videos on doing that, and there's no need in making this video any longer than it is. So I'll bring you back when I get done, and we'll stick it in and test it and see if we get better results. All right, well, they've been reflowed. I actually desoldered and then reflowed them. So let's see if I can get this to focus here. And this is of course, the back side. Nice shiny new solder. And let's see if I can get the bottom side here, which is a little more difficult to do. And this is where our cold solder joints were. get the focus here. You can see got good penetration. Cleaned them up. Even right there where somebody had touched it up before. So there should be a good solder joint on all those. This side will be a little harder to see. Might not be able to get this side. Let's see. Yeah, I can't really get this in focus because it's the way the board is. But I think you can tell that they're pretty well taken care of there. One on the end there looks a little dark. I'll have to take a peek at that a little closer. But I think rest of them look pretty good. So I'm going to take another quick little look, and then we'll come back and put it back in the cage and find out if it's working any better than it was. Let's put it that way. Okay, well, we put it back in the card cage and we're still having problems. So I switched to the other card cage just in case the card cage is still giving me problems. And it was still messed up. But I just wiggled the board in the slot and reset it. And this is my good board. So now in the position it's in, it's reading looks good. So if I hit the reset, it's still saying looks good. Now, if I just wiggle the board a little bit forward, hit the reset, now I'm getting fatal errors, a checklist. So if I move it back, hit it again, looks good. So still have a problem with that connector. I'm pretty sure it's all the cold solder joints have been fixed. So it's not cold solder joints now. It's the contacts just aren't making contact. Now I don't know if it's the ones that were a little mangled or if the contacts are just dirty and need a good cleaning. So since they're gold contacts, I'm going to have to get me some Tarnex, I guess, and see if I can't clean the terminals. Will be the next thing to do. All right, let me go ahead and put this other board back in and just see if I can do the same trick to it and see what we get. Okay, we're still getting that same status bad and the flip bad. So let me rock the board back and reset it. All right, still getting the same thing. Okay, but we know this board is bad because we've tested it in the game. So let me put my good board back in one more time. And let's see what happens. Okay, it's doing better, but I still think we have problems with the conductivity of the pins. So my next step, I'm going to have to go see if I can find some Tarnex and try to clean that edge connector. And if that doesn't do it, then the only thing I know to do is to source a new edge connector and see if I can't put a new edge connector in it. And then, if we still have problems, we're just going to have to declare the board as flaky. And I don't know where to go from then. I wouldn't know where to begin. The only thing I would know to do then would be to just go ahead and replace all the components on the board and see if that fixed it. So, but I think it's doing better. And I think if we clean that slot, then maybe we can get by with the, I think it was at least 3 of those wipers that look kind of funky. So maybe I can look up the position of those and find out what signal goes to those particular contacts, and maybe that'll give us a clue as to what might be going on also. So, okay, be back as soon as I get some cleaner and clean that edge connector. Okay, well, I finally got this board figured out, and I know what the problem is. I started out with saying, well, I was thinking cold solder joints, so I fixed and reflowed all the solder joints on the edge connector here. So that should have fixed that, but it still didn't work. So I said, still got a problem. So what do? Got out my voltmeter and set it to continuity check. You can hear that. So I figured I would check the continuity and make sure I still didn't have a cold solder joint. So I went through all 100 pins, and it's real simple to do. You got 50 contacts on each side of the edge connector here. You got 50 on this side and 50 on the back side. The way this board is designed, you can get to the first 50, or this side right here, with the pins on the top of the edge. And all these little solder joints right here above, these are pin connections to the bottom side of the edge connector. So you have access to all 100 pins on the top side. Well, I say all 100. Actually, you only have access to 99 of the pins, because if you notice right here, there's not a contact right here, or a solder. See, every other one, this one is this pin, this one is the one on the back side that matches up with this, and so on and so on. Well, for some reason, the fourth one back, which is actually pin 94, doesn't have a connection on the top side here. So you have to either go from the bottom side of the board, or what I did was I traced where it went on the board. So actually it would be this one right here, the fourth one back from this end, and you can either check it where it makes contact on the board down here, or it went to one of these connections right here. I forget exactly which one, but anyway, I scoped it out, and I was able to tell that all of these contact pins are making good connections with the edge connector here. So, and when you do a continuity check, I don't know if most people know this, but you hear the beep. Okay, what you also want to do is look at your meter, and it should, if you got a direct short or direct contact, you should have zeros, 0 ohms. Now, it will still beep. Most meters beep up to 45 to 50 ohms. So if you had a contact that had a 45 to 50 ohm resistance, you would still hear the beep. So even though you want to hear that beep, you want to also look at your meter to make sure that you don't have any resistance in that connection. So what I can do is, let me just show you a little bit. I'm not going to go through all these, but to make sure that this pin is soldered to the board and makes contact with the edge connector, you just put one lead here and one up here. And if you look at the meter, well, I don't know if you can see that in the camera there, but you just want to make sure that you don't have any resistance on that connection. And you can go to the next one, then the next one, and so on and so on. And I had connection on all the pins. All the pins are making connection through the solder joint onto the back of the board. So my reflow was successful, but it still didn't work. So what I did next is I went ahead and just plugged the board in. Okay. Now, let's see if I can show you here. Now what I have to do is make sure that the board is making conducting with the pins. So how do you do that? Well, plug the board into the connector, and then you have to put one probe on the board itself, not the connector, but the board, because you want to make sure that connector makes a contact there. So put it on there, and you can go down here. Let's see. All right, I hit my meter here. Okay, there we go. So we put it on the board, and there we go. We know that that edge connector is making contact. And we can go to the next one, and the next one, and go through all of them the same way. Okay, well, I did that, and when I got over here to the fourth pin, this is the one that wasn't making connection. All of them were making good connection except for the fourth pin, which is pin 94, or position 94 on the connector. Looking at the schematics, pin 94 is the reset line. So that one pin was causing all the problem of why this wasn't working. So let me show you what that pin looks like. And I'm going to have to put the micro lens, or the macro lens, back on the other camera. And I'll first show a picture from the other day when we first looked at these pins, and we noticed there was a few of them that were kind of jacked up. Well, the one that I'm showing a picture of right now is, these pins are split pins. Each connector has two wipers, and one of those wipers, if you can see, the very tip of it was gone, not there. I don't know if it broke off or whether it was just that way from the factory, a manufacturer's defect. But the tip of the one half of the wiper was gone. Okay, so let me go ahead and get set up, and I'll show you what it looks like now. Okay, well, here's what that pin looks like now. What I did was I had to try to bend this out so that it would make contact. And as you can see, these pins have this little piece on here that's supposed to latch it behind this piece right here. Well, that piece was broken on the other one. So when I bent them back out to try to put tension on them, when I plugged the board back in, it caught the top of that pin and it folded it down, and it's down in the bottom down here. Now it's not shorting out on the pin across from it, so it should be okay. If I tried to take something down in there and try to bend it back up, it would probably break off, and it might break the one off next to it. So it's working right now, so I'm not going to mess with it anymore. It really needs a new connector, a new edge connector. So that's something that it's going to need in the future. But for right now, this pin is making contact, and this is the one that was messed up, that wasn't making contact. If you wiggle the board a certain way, it would just barely make contact, and sometimes it would work, but most of the time it wouldn't. So that was the whole problem. Okay, and now to prove that it works, I'm going to put my known good tested board in it, and let's power it up and watch what happens. Bam! Looks good. So that board is good. And every time you do that, you can hit the reset. Bam! Looks good. Okay. So now let's try the board that almost works. Board number 12. This is the one that I replaced U21 in because the tester said that everything associated with that, well, two things that were associated with U21 was bad, but it didn't fix the board. So let's put this board in and turn it on. Okay, and there we go. As you can see, it hasn't changed, but it came up good. Now sometimes this board for some reason would come up saying looks good, but since I fixed that pin, it doesn't do that. So it still says that the status is bad and that the flip is bad. So there's got to be something else associated with U21, something that connects to U21 is bad. So that's my theory on this board. Okay. Now, let's do board number 11. This board is bad. This is the one that was showing the rug pattern on the screen, but the game would still run. And this one was giving us basically, if you remember, it was just putting up the screen that said it had errors and to check all these errors. So let's see what happens now. Turn it on. It's taking a little longer. Okay. The reason I think it took a little longer is because it was actually going through the test and testing everything on the board, which is what it's supposed to do. Now, as you can see, we have different results. Before it was just putting up the screen that said fatal error and gave you a list of things to check. This is a little more detailed. You know, it says that the data bus is okay, the linear is okay, the area LD is okay, but it says the X wide is bad. That's new. Okay. It also says the status is bad. Well, the status is that U21 chip. Okay, but it says the linear CT is okay, and the area CT is okay. Feedback is okay. Well, feed BK, I think that stands for feedback. Now down here, the status, which is again U21. This says everything is bad. The flop is bad. The flip is bad. The I guess flash is bad, the cons, C-O-N-S is bad, the EXP is bad, but the DIR is okay. So this is giving us a little better detailed look at what may be bad and what is good. So, you know, it's not going to tell you exactly what's bad like the RAM tester did. The RAM tester tells you exactly which chip is bad. But the pattern board tester doesn't do that. It just gives you areas to look at and a list of chips to where you can take a logic probe and probe through the board and try to find out which chips may have a problem. So you still have to do your standard troubleshooting with a logic probe or whatever other means you have. Maybe you could use a logic comparator or you know, logic monitor. Or in other words, you still have to go in and use a little brain power and diagnose and try to find out what is good and what is bad. But at least now the board, I think, is doing what it's meant to do, and that whole problem was just due to that one bad pin on that edge connector. But now we have a fix on it, and like I say, it needs to be replaced, but right now it's working, so we're going to go with it like it is right now. I don't have a replacement. I think I've sourced one, but like I say, this board doesn't belong to me, and I'm just going to leave that up to the owner if he wants to change it. But if it continues to work like this, then that's fine. Now, I have another idea. We have an extra slot in the card cage here that's not being used. This edge connector is just like daisy chained to all these connectors in the card. So even if this is bad, I think we could still use it. We just wouldn't have access to the board being out the cage where we could troubleshoot it. But you could still test it. And let's try that theory right now. Let me go ahead and take this out. I'll stand it up. Actually, we have two card slots. So I'm going to put it in one of these card slots. Let's see if my theory will work here. Okay. Now the pattern board is in a standard card slot. So let's turn it on and see if it still tests the board. And there you have it. It works. We got the same thing. The XY is bad. The X wide. The status is bad. And all these are bad except for the DIR. So, even with the card slot, if it was bad, you could still put it in one of the empty card slots in the cage and still test the board. You just wouldn't have access to the board for troubleshooting. All right, let's go one step further on that. Let me take that out. And let me put the good board in, and let's see if it reads the good board. All right, let's turn it on. All right, sometimes it doesn't, you have to hit the reset button here. Ah, it didn't work. All right, let's just try that again. Maybe it just wasn't making good contact. So status bad, flip bad. Well, so much for that theory. Let's put it back in the slot here. All right, now it's just being goofy again. All right, maybe the card, one of the cards is wiggled loose, moving the cage around. Okay. Okay, just to prove my point, I got my good pattern board in the card slot. It's in the card slot that it's normally in the game. We got the test card in here. So I'm going to fire it up and we're going to see if it will test the pattern board good with it in the card cage. There we go. Looks good. So it is testing it. Now, I think what's happening is after this has been on a while, evidently it's a component heating up or changing values. Something's going on, because if I was to leave this on a while and then recheck it, it would come up with the bad screen. So I'm thinking it still has a problem somewhere, but it seems to be the longer you leave it on is when the problem shows up. And it's definitely not the edge connector causing that particular problem, because we're not even using this edge connector anymore. We're using the one built into the card slot. So let me reset it. Maybe that was just a fluke. I don't know. Okay, see? All right, it's been on for a little while now. Now it's showing up bad. So if I cut it off, remove the pattern board, put it in the test slot, turn it on, all right, it's coming up bad now. Okay, I'm going to turn it off. I'm not going to touch the card. Everything is going to stay just like it is. We're going to let it cool down. Then I'll power it back up in a few minutes and find out what happens. All right, well, it's been several minutes, so still haven't touched the board. So let me power it up and let's see what happens. Bam, looks good. The board is testing good now. So the only conclusion I can come to is there's something on the board that's changing values. Could be heat related, I guess. Maybe I can try some freeze spray. If I can find my freeze spray. And Let's see. See if I can turn it around here where we can see the board here. Now, I'm going to leave it on for a little while. It's still testing good. Now, I don't know if this is a continuous test. I doubt it, because it puts a screen up on here. So I think that it goes through a test routine, and then once it's over, it puts the results up on the screen, and that's the end of the test. So you have to hit the reset button or power it back up to get it to retest. So let me just go ahead and hit the reset, and let's see what happens. Okay, it's already coming up bad. I don't have any freeze spray, but let me see if I got enough of this compressed dust here. Compressed air. I got some more of this somewhere. I'm going to have to look it up. All right. I'm going to go ahead and just hit these chips over in this section right here. It reset it. The cold air reset it. All right, it's not enough cold air, not enough left in the can. All right, let's see if we got any in this one. No, not enough to do anything. Well, let me see if I can find another can of air or my I got freeze spray somewhere around here. Let me see if I can find it. We'll be back and test that theory out. All right. Well, I might be barking up the wrong tree, but it won't be the first time. Got me a can of air, electronics duster, and if you turn this upside down and spray it, it's freeze spray. So first, let's turn it on. It's been sitting for a couple hours now. I had to dig out my can of spray here, so I finally got back to it. So it ought to be good and cold. If my theory is right and it's a thermal problem, it should fire up. This is my good board, so it should fire up and say it's good. It looks good. So let's see what happens. Okay, it says looks good. So now what we do is we'll leave it on and see if anything starts to warm up. I mean, it could even be these ROMs here, because I took the original ROMs out. I burnt me a set of ROMs to put in here to see if the files that I had were good, even though this board came with a set of ROMs for the pattern board. You know, I wanted to see if the files that I had were good, so I went ahead and burnt a set of ROMs, and that's what's in here now. Now, it's possible that maybe I have a problem with these EPROMs. Maybe the EPROMs, when they get hot, they fail. I don't know. If the freeze spray doesn't seem to work and give us any results, next I'm going to put the original ROMs back in, and we'll do the same test and see if the same thing happens. And like I say, let me go ahead and hit the reset now. It's been on for a minute or so. Okay, still good. So let's go ahead and let it stay on a little bit longer. Now the other day when I had this on, something up in this area right here, I put my finger on it and it felt warm. And I don't know what it was. I was thinking it's one of these resistors right here. These resistors have to do with I think the video output signal, which these 3 transistors right here too. That has to do with the 3 component video outputs. So like I say, oh, it's one of these is hot. Ooh, yeah. One of these 3 resistors right here, which I'm sure has to do with the component output. But we're not using the component output. We're using the, well, one of the component outputs, the Y, or is it the, I don't know what they call it. It's the one that has the composite signal in it. So, yeah, I'm not sure which one of those is getting hot, but I wouldn't think that would have anything to do with the board malfunctioning unless it's getting hot and causing it to drain too much power, taking away power from the board. I'll have to check the voltages, I guess, to see if the voltage drops on any of the 3 power rails. All right, let me try it again. Hit the reset. Okay, now it's done it. All right. Well, first thing, let me cool down where it's hot right here. Wait a minute. It's a brand new can. I gotta take the clip off of it. All right. Spray down this area right here. Hit the reset. Nope. All right. Just going to hit each one of the chips. Nope. Hit these 3 right here. To reset. Nope. All right. Hit the ROMs. Reset. Aha. Looks good. Maybe I don't like those ROMs. Those are ROMs I got from China. They were supposed to be, let's see if I can get this right, 2532s. And they're marked 2532s, but in reality they turn out to be counterfeit, and they're 2732s. So what I did was I doubled up the image and burned them to these chips. And evidently, even though they're 2732s, they're probably, since they're counterfeit, they're probably seconds and more than likely worthless chips. So okay, it's still looking good, but everything right here is cold right now. So let me leave it on a little bit longer, and I'm going to continue filming, but I might just cut the video and jump ahead several minutes. But while I'm doing this, I'm just going to continuously record it. Anyway. Okay, still looks good. It's funny how these all these little things can affect the outcome, and you have to, you can't just say, all right, you got a problem and this is what it is, and that's the only thing it is. It seems like we've had several problems instead of just one problem. You know, we had cold solder joints, that was probably a problem. Then we had the bad wiper on the card edge socket right there. That was another problem. And now we have these, supposedly, it seems like the ROMs are a problem. So it's not always straightforward. So you have to look at every component in a system that you're working on. And it's hard to do sometimes, but you just have to do a process of elimination. And even if you don't think it's possible that something could be bad, you have to look at it like, yeah, it might be bad, and you have to eliminate it. So sometimes it just takes trial and error. All right, let me reset it again. Okay, now it's gone back to saying it's bad. All right, let me see if I can be a little more discreet here. I'm going to try to just hit one of these ROMs and not the other, and see if I can narrow it down to one or the other. This might be a little hard to do, but let's see. Okay, I hit X4, so let me do a reset. All right, now it says it looks good. Okay, I'm going to let it heat up again and stop working. Then I'm going to try to hit X5 and see if that has any effect on it. They're right next to each other, so it's kind of hard not to get one without getting the other, but no, X5 feels a little bit warmer than room temperature, and X4 is still cold from the freeze spray. So let me see if I can help it out by just putting my finger on it, transferring some heat to it. It may just be, like I say, just one of the ROMs bad. And I can confirm by putting the originals back in. I just put these in right before I started filming this round of testing, because I wanted to see if these new ROMs I burnt were good. So I may have introduced this problem to it by changing those ROMs. All right. All right, still looks good. It's going to take a while for it to to warm back up. If I had my heat gun, I could heat it up faster, but that's okay. It's not particularly warm today. It's a little on the cool side, so if it's going to heat up, it's going to heat up from the internal temperature from the ROM itself. And any that I introduce with my finger here. All right, let's try it again here. Still looking good. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, it's gone back to showing bad again. All right, so I'm going to take this piece of paper I folded up and I'm going to put it over top of the X4 and hope that's going to shield it from the cold. And let's go ahead and freeze X5 and see what happens. Okay, let's hit the reset. Still bad. All right. Let me freeze it a little more. Hit the reset. Got frost on it now. Still bad. All right, let me hit X4. Hit the reset. Looks good. And if you noticed, X5 has still got the frost on it. X5 has still got the frost on it, but X4, the frost has already melted. So we got a bad ROM. Phew. I don't think I've ever had so much problems with a board. Okay. Let me go ahead and take this out. It's still frosted over. X5. Okay, let me get the original ROMs back out. And we'll put them back in. All right, this is X5. This is X4. Okay. Look good. All right, I'm going to put my good pattern board back in. And let's power it back up. And it looks good. Okay. All right. Now let's see how long it takes. I'll just leave it on and let it warm up and find out if the problem is solved. Tell you what, I'm gonna go ahead and cut you off, and I'll bring you back in, let's say, 5 minutes. It didn't take that long last time, so we'll let it take about 5 minutes, and it ought to be good and warm if it's gonna do the same thing. Okay, well, it's been on for about 5 minutes, so that's about 2-3 times longer than it was before when it was having the problem. So let's hit the reset and see what happens. Looks good. Hit it again. All right, looks good. Well, I believe we really had a bad ROM, X4, which is one of these cheap Chinese counterfeit ROMs. So that just goes to teach you a lesson. Don't buy cheap ROMs from China. If you got to pay a little more for the good ROMs, pay a little more for the good ROMs. I know it's hard to know good from bad, but especially when they go to the trouble to make these chips look like they're basically new old stock. And they actually silk screen them. And these, like I say, were silk screened wrong. They seem to erase fine and they program fine. But as we just seen, this one has a heat issue. When it heats up, it doesn't work. So the other one was good. So I may be able to program another one and get a set that's working. But okay, now, let me hit it again. One more try. Yeah, looks good. Okay. All right. Well, let me take this good board out. And let me put the almost working board back in. Let me get it lined up here. All right, let's try this one. Okay, this one is coming up with the same thing that we were getting. The status is bad and the flip is bad. And that's the one that we changed U21 on, but it still didn't have an effect on it. So, all right, this one is still reading the same. And as you remember, before we got everything sorted out, we were getting all kinds of crazy different things here. Okay, this is board number 11. This one is also bad, but this one we were getting some actual data on, where originally we were just getting the standard error message and you need to check all this. So let's see if we're still getting a detailed outlook on this board. And if you remember, this takes a little bit longer because it's running through the test. And yes, this is the same, hadn't changed. The XY is bad. The status is bad. The flip, flash, con, EXP, and the DIR is good. Okay, the rest are bad. So we're now getting a constant diagnosis on each one of these boards. So I feel good to say we've got the test cards working as they're supposed to. Boy, this has been one of those things, though. It just seems like all these little things just one after another, and they combine together, and it just makes it hard to diagnose what's going on. But as you can see, you just have to be persistent, and you just have to go through a process of elimination. Sometimes the process comes to you in your head and you get it in the right order, and sometimes it's just like you're just lost, and everything you try doesn't really work. But sometimes that's the way it goes. Troubleshooting isn't always a straightforward, bam, this is what you do to fix it, and it's fixed. So, like I say, you have to go through a process of elimination. You have to check everything, even if you don't think it's the problem. It very well could be the problem. So you just have to check it and try to eliminate it as best you can. But you can do it even with no more test equipment than I have. I have this little Chinese IC tester, which isn't always accurate, but hey, I still swear by these things. It works pretty good for what it is, and no more than it cost. I have a logic probe. You can break out the logic probe, and so it's just that whatever you have, whatever means you have. Not too long ago, I got the Inquisitor, so I was able to. This board has two 2114 RAMs in it, so I was able to pull these out and check those, and they check good. So, I eliminated that. This IC here is in a socket. I put that in the tester. It tested good. This IC here I put in the tester. It tested good. So I'd kind of eliminated everything except for the socketed in chips here. And who would have thought that these RAMs were bad? I mean, ROMs. Because, like I say, even though they were relabeled counterfeits from China, they appeared to be working, and I've used them in other things, but, sometimes you just get a bad ROM. So they might be good ROMs, just I happened to get one that was bad because I know they're not new old stock. They're bound to be pulls where they pulled out of other equipment or whatever. And, they don't make new ROMs anymore to my knowledge. I mean, I might be wrong about that, but for the most part, what you find on the market is either new old stock or pulls that have been pulled out of other equipment. So there you go. I think we can chalk this one up as completed. Now, is this set of test boards worth having? Does it help? Well, the pattern board tester doesn't identify bad chips as like the RAM tester did. The RAM tester tested all the RAMs at one time and actually showed you on the video screen which ones were bad. That's good. That makes the board set worth having just because of that. Now, you don't need it, because if you use the test ROMs that are available, which I have used, they work. But if you have multiple RAMs bad on the board, it only finds, it goes through the RAMs, in other words, one at a time, and it goes until it finds a bad one, then it stops. So you pull the board out, you change the RAM, you put it back in, and you have to test again. Then if you have another one bad, it finds that one, the next one in line, and it tells you that's bad. So you got to pull the board back out, desolder, put a socket in, put a new RAM in, and like that one board that I have, if you go back and watch my other video, I had every RAM on the board was bad except for one. And I think, what is it, 16 RAMs on the RAM board? Something like that. So yeah, I was constantly back and forth with the board, and I couldn't hardly believe it, all those RAMs were bad. So that's why I'm thinking that maybe that was in the same card cage that this pattern board is in, board number 10. This pattern board here, when you put it in the tester, even though the tester is working now, it is totally dead. It doesn't even try to make a test. So this board has some serious problems. That might be good, because it might be a serious problem that can easily be tracked down. So this is one that you're going to have to put in the card cage and fire up and go through the schematic, and with a logic probe, you're going to have to go through, step by step, and try to figure out what's bad. And just looking at this right now, I'm moving it back and forth into light, and I'm seeing the reflection of light on top of the chips. And I'm seeing a couple chips where the end looks like it's warped up. It's not flat all the way across. So, that might be an indication of maybe some kind of physical damage. Maybe the chip's fried internally. So just little things like that. You just have to be a detective sometimes. This particular board, looking at the back of it, it doesn't look like it's ever been touched. So that's a good thing. Nobody has tried to repair it. So I'll be the first one to attempt to fix it. So if you like these videos, and if you enjoyed watching me troubleshoot this board and get it back up running again, to where we now have a board that will test the cards, the pattern boards, please subscribe to the channel, because I got more coming up. What I'm going to do next, I'm going to talk to Dave. These boards belong to Dave, and he has a lot of Gore from Wizard of War and Robbie Roto. He's got a lot of boards that need to be repaired. So what he's going to do with these boards, he's going to use them to repair some of the boards. And of course, these only repair the good for the RAM cards and the pattern boards. But if you remove this chip right here, U2, take it out of the socket, and flip this switch to position 2, I believe it is, then you can use this card to put any of the boards in for testing. So, you know, if you have a complete board stack in here and you put this board right here, you can put a CPU board in here, you can put the pattern board, you can put the game board in here, and use this as an extension to troubleshoot the board, which you can also do by, if you noticed, I took this off the cage right here, and you can take this one off the cage, which will expose any board you got in J6, the N board. You can troubleshoot, so you can actually move these boards around. The only ones you can't are the RAM cards, and if you have a set of these test boards, you know, that's not a problem because you plug that into the test card board. So you really don't need this for checking the other boards, because you can just move it to the front of the cage here, and you can actually set the cage down on your workbench, and you have access. If you take this off too, you have access to everything on the board. So in that respect, it's really not necessary. But it is nice that at least it'll give you an idea of what's wrong with the pattern board. And I've already printed out a schematic of the pattern board, and there's 2 schematics in the test manual. This one here is labeled pattern board test, and what I believe this is, it has block diagrams of the different areas on the board, and they're numbered. This one is number 1. Let's see, where's number 2? Oh, number 2 are up here. So you got number 1, you got number 2, you got number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6. And I think that's it. And these are, I believe, what they are. And it doesn't say in the manual, but this is just my suspicion of what this is, that this is the order that the pattern board does its test. The first it tests the data bus, which is number 1. Then it tests the linear counters, number 2. And then it tests the area load. And then it tests the X wide circuit, and so on and so on. So, like the board that doesn't even test at all, that just has the blank screen, well, I believe you start with number 1 because it's not even running test number 1. So there must be a problem with the data bus. So on that board, that's where I'm going to start looking. I'm going to start looking on the data bus. And one of the cards, it said that the X wide was a fail. So here's the X wide within this box right here. So you take your logic probe and you'll probe all these chips within this box, and so on and so on. So, and here's the status, and the status has U21, which on that one board we changed and it didn't change anything, but it also has U12 in that box. So we'll have to take a logic probe and we'll look at U12. And if that checks out good, then we'll follow all the inputs and outputs to the status chip. And, you know, it goes from this chip to this chip, and then got some that goes down, just some stuff down here, and basic troubleshooting, in other words. So, if you want to see some troubleshooting in the future, I'll try to fix these pattern boards, see what I can do, and can't make any guarantees that I can actually fix them, but I'm going to give it a go. And if Dave doesn't need these boards anytime soon, I'm going to check with him and see. I don't know what his repair schedule is, but if I can hang on to him for a little while longer, what I might try to see is if you put the pattern board on the test board and run it, I'm going to take a logic probe and I'll tap in the 5 volts right here on this tantalum capacitor, and I'm going to go through the schematic with the logic probe and probe out the good board. Okay, so I'll probe out let's take this good logic board here. I mean, not logic board, pattern board. Well, this ain't the good one, but I'll take the good one, and I'll just go through every one of the chips in the different areas, you know, and I'll write down on the schematic whether the, you know, this pin is high, low, or pulsing, and I'll do this for the whole board. Then I'll put in a bad board, and I'll be able to take that schematic and I'll be able to go and check the other board and compare it. So by making a comparison of the good board outputs or logic probe data, I'll be able to look at the data on the bad board, and hopefully I'll be able to find the difference. And where you have a difference is the area of interest where you kind of focus in on. So that's kind of my strategy. So it worked pretty good when I did that Popeye board. If you watched that video, I basically did the same thing. I took the whole set of schematics for the Popeye, and I painstakingly used the logic probe and went through every chip on the boards, both the CPU board and the video board. And that's how I was able to track down the parts of the board that wasn't working correctly. So, okay, enough of my rambling. This is going to do it. So, this has just been another arcade fix. Have you had your arcade fix today?